In the rugged heart of the Bitterroot Valley, Montana, the name Sterling carried the weight of a mountain. At the center of this empire was Burt, the Baron Sterling, a man whose moral compass was as rigid as the fence lines he built. For Burt, life was measured in literacy, legacy, and the law of the land. But even mountains have shadows, and his was named Hank. The story begins at the Silver Ridge Manor, a fortress of stone and cedar. While Burt's elder sons, James and David, one an architect, the other a corporate litigator, sat at the mahogany dining table. Hank was where he always was, in the dirt. Hank was the youngest, a man of immense physical strength and a heart as wide as the plains. But he was burdened by a secret shame. As a child, letters had danced on the page for him, a struggle Burt mistook for laziness and stupidity. While his brothers were sent to Ivy League schools, Hank was relegated to the status of a glorified ranch hand on his own father's estate. Hank's current emotion, a quiet, steady ache. He didn't hate his father. He worshipped him. He accepted the crumbs of affection Burt tossed him, believing he truly was the failure everyone said he was. The peace of the ranch was shattered when Kayla, the daughter of a rival land tycoon, arrived. A marriage between her and a Sterling would have unified the valley. But Kayla was cold, her eyes fixed on status. When she found Hank alone by the corrals, she didn't see a man, she saw a servant. "You can't even read the contract our fathers signed." "Hank," she sneered, her voice like a whip. "How could I ever stand beside a man who belongs in the mud?" She rejected him publicly, a blow that shamed Burt more than it hurt Hank. Burt didn't defend his son. He looked through him as if he were a ghost. The city girl and the mountain man. The arrival of Rachel, a sharp-tongued, brilliant law student from Chicago, changed everything. She came to the ranch to handle land use permits, initially dismissing Hank as a cliché in denim. That changed during the Great Spring Thaw. A flash flood turned the valley into a death trap. While the educated brothers argued over GPS coordinates, Hank acted. He rode into the churning mud on his stallion, pulling Rachel from her sinking SUV just as the glass shattered. As she recovered, Rachel stayed in the stables to watch Hank work. She saw him heel a colicking horse with nothing but a whisper and a steady hand. She realized that Hank wasn't slow. He was a genius of the natural world. She saw the soul that Burt had spent decades trying to ignore. When Rachel announced she intended to marry Hank, the manor became a tinderbox. Burt Sterling stood in his study, the air thick with the scent of old leather and tobacco. "He is a laborer, Rachel," Burt growled. "He has no future. If you take his hand, you leave this house with nothing." Hank, standing in the doorway, did something he had never done. He didn't bow his head. "I've spent my life trying to read your books, Dad," Hank said, his voice low and steady. "But Rachel is the only one who ever tried to read me." Hank walked out. He took nothing but an old 1980s Ford F-150 and the woman he loved. Burt watched from the window, his heart hardening into a stone he would carry for years. The next 5 years were a narrative of grit. Hank and Rachel moved to a dead patch of scrubland at the valley's edge. While Rachel commuted hours to finish her law degree, Hank worked 3 jobs. He was a long-haul trucker by night and a day laborer by day. Rachel felt a fierce, protective fire. She worked to become the state's most formidable attorney, driven by the injustice her husband had suffered. Hank felt a new, quiet pride. He wasn't building a name for his father anymore. He was building a life for his wife and their newborn son, Burt Jr. BJ. Hank realized that while he couldn't read, he understood logistics. He started a small trucking cooperative for local ranchers who were being bullied by Desmond Thorne, a predatory land developer. Within 3 years, Sterling Transport was the largest shipping fleet in the state. The aging Burt Sterling, now lonelier than he would admit, began spending his afternoons at the town square. There, he met a 5-year-old boy playing with a toy tractor. The boy was sharp, brave, and had a laugh that sounded hauntingly familiar. Burt became a mentor to the boy, teaching him how to track elk and read the wind. One afternoon, he gave the boy his gold pocket watch. "Take this, son," Burt whispered. "A man needs to know his time." "Thanks, Grandpa," the boy chirped. "Wait until I show my dad, Hank." The world stopped spinning for Burt Sterling. He realized he had been loving his son's son all along. The failure he had cast out had raised a child with more honor than his Ivy League sons combined. Desmond Thorne, sensing Burt's weakness, moved in for the kill. He planned to frame the Sterling Ranch for a massive cattle poisoning scandal to force a foreclosure. Hank found out through his trucking network. He didn't call the police. He knew Thorne had them in his pocket. Instead, Hank led a convoy of his trucks to block the shipment of tainted feed. In a brutal, rain-slicked confrontation on a mountain pass, Hank fought Thorne's mercenaries. He took a bullet to the shoulder, but he held the line until the sun rose. The story ends at the dedication of the Sterling Pediatric Wing at the county hospital. Burt arrived to find his name on the building, funded by an anonymous donor. He saw Hank standing in the back of the room, his arm in a sling, his face bruised but his eyes clear. The room went silent as the Baron walked through the crowd. Burt didn't offer a contract or a book. He reached out and touched Hank's calloused, scarred hand. Then, in front of the entire county, Burt took off his Stetson, the symbol of his authority, and placed it on his son's head. "I spent my life looking for a successor in the library," Burt said, his voice cracking. "I didn't realize he was already in the saddle." They didn't need words. The Sterling legacy wasn't in the books. It was in the dirt, the blood, and the son who never gave up on his father. As the sun dips below the jagged Montana peaks, painting the Silver Ridge Ranch in hues of deep amber and violet, Burt and Hank stand on the porch together. For the first time in 30 years, they aren't patriarch and outcast. They are simply father and son, watching the next generation, little Burt Jr., ride off into the distance. The story of the Sterling family reminds us that sometimes the person the world overlooks is the only one capable of saving it. It's a timeless tale of redemption, grit, and the unbreakable bond of blood. The greatest strength is not found in the words we read, but in the promises we keep. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Sterling Dynasty, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.